What is up, everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode. We're here for round number 18 of Season 5 of our Jaguar Racing career, and believe me when I say we are really getting into the business end of the season this time around. We are going to be here for the Qatar Grand Prix, and I am very much looking forward to this one. We come in with a 56-point lead in the Drivers' Championship. Surely we can't throw that away now, but we've still got 6 races left to go, or 6 race weekends left to go, 2 of which of course are sprints. And there we go. You can see now on the development chart, there is that big jump I was talking about from Alfa Romeo going into this race weekend, and or going into the previous race weekend in Japan, which for those of you who haven't watched that video yet, I definitely would recommend going and watching that, because it was an absolute banger, one of my favourite races on the whole calendar, and I was glad that it pretty much went as best it could go. So yeah, there you go. You can see 56-point lead in the Constructors' Championship, and we now lead the in the Drivers' Championship, and we now lead the Constructors' Championship as well, even on points, but ahead on countback. Jack Doohan, if he can get his shit together, we will win this at a canter at this point. So we're going to make our way through these events that we've got coming up before the race weekend, and then we will get into the actual race weekend proper. A few things just to boost morale and whatnot. And you may have seen we actually had a message there that I missed for a second there, but we will definitely check that once we've stopped advancing. And as we go to our messages, here we go. I called it. Nico Hülkenberg is retiring from Formula One, and yeah, we will be seeing not 1 but 2 retirements this season as a result, because Hülkenberg will be joining Carlos Sainz in Retirementville, population them, at the end of the season. It'll be very interesting to see how the field opens up. If you commented on the previous video, let me know if your opinion has changed any on who's going to be on the grid for next season. Keeping in mind some of the people who are out of seats at the moment include Porsche and Dragovic, of course. It'll be very interesting to see if either of those drivers, if not both of them, make their way back onto the grid. But we're here in Qatar, and the one thing that you can bet your bottom dollar on in Qatar is that I am going to absolutely shred these tyres that we're racing on, because that is how it goes around here. The tyre wear is such that, I remember I once had to do a 2-stop around here in a 50% race. I had to do soft, medium, hard, because not even medium hard was good enough to get me to the end. Even that was just going to wear my tyres out too much. It was impossible. They said it couldn't happen, and indeed they were right. So I had to do a 2-stop here in Season 1. Obviously I've improved the tyre wear of the car quite significantly since that point, and well, somehow we've actually managed to go second fastest here, which I can't tell you how that's happened. But one thing I can tell you as well is that the tyre wear was absolutely atrocious in the race strategy program. I was, taking about 5/10 worth of performance out of the medium tyre every single lap. It was not fun in the slightest, and it made me really not looking forward to the race itself. I think in the sprint, because of course it is a sprint weekend, we might just be able to get away with it to score some points. But I think this weekend, more than anything, is going to be about damage limitation. It's going to be about reducing the deficit that I suffer to Lando Norris over the course of this weekend. So yeah, I think if we can go out of this race weekend with still at least like a 40-point lead in the championship, I'll be pretty happy with that. But I don't want to consign myself to defeat immediately, so we are going to try and push as hard as we can in qualifying. First flying lap on a set of soft compound tyres was a 1:18.9, and we go out on another set of fresh softs. Not that we needed to, because we actually would have been P5 at the end of the session here, but I just felt like doing it anyway. So I decided to do that. We improved by about 3/10 or so. It's a 1:18.5. We just snuck into the 1:18.5s, and that was good enough to put us fastest for Q1 actually. So maybe I have a bit more pace. Maybe I'm a bit more of a contender here than I thought I might be. As you can see, we narrowly outperform Carlos Sainz there. Liam Lawson has a grid penalty, not sure what that's for. And the big talking point here, perhaps, Sergio Perez, who won a race just 2 races ago in Monza, is out in Q1 along with Joe, Hülkenberg, Sargent, Stroll and De Vries. So yeah, Hülkenberg not hitting a purple patch prior to his retirement. He will be out. and yeah, less than a second separating the top 16 here. So you had to be right on the bounce, finger on the pulse, in order to get through to Q2 here. And I'm sure it will be a very similar thing, if not even tighter of a field here in Q2 as we make our way out for our first flying lap on a set of used soft compound tyres this time, setting a banker lap. We'll see if we can get one that's any good here as we round the final corner on to the straight with the DRS. We'll see what kind of time it's going to be. It's going to be a 1:19.5. Okay, so that proves to you that the tyre wear around here is pretty bad. I went 7/10 slower than my initial lap on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and almost a second slower than my final time. But fortunately, we are improving here quite significantly. We're 5/10 up at the moment. I think we're going to need a bit more improvement than this if we want to make it through. And you can see we've saved a bit of time going through these last few corners. It's now 8/10 that we're up by, and I imagine we'll save even more time going through this final corner here, although we have actually gone a bit deep there, so I'm not sure how much time we will end up saving after all. Yeah, it's going to be about an 8.5 improvement, I think, if I had to guess, maybe a little bit less than that. A 1:18.7, 1:18.6 even, and that will be good enough to see us through in P3. So, good result for us, and we will see if we can go one better as we make our way into Q3. Meanwhile, the big talking point here for me, I mean, Pierre Gasly going fastest, that's a talking point in itself. What a result for him. But Jack Doohan knocked out here in Q2 once again. He will be starting 13th after Liam Lawson's grid penalty is applied, of course. He was only 6/10 off the top spot. I told you it would be a tight field. 6/10 separate the top 15 there. Only Tsunoda really was not anywhere near anyone else. Such a tight field here. Such is the nature of Formula One at the moment in this career mode. You know, there are now 10 teams who are all very close together in performance. It's really only AlphaTauri who don't possess the potential to get through to Q3, get onto the podium, and everything else is just entirely based on the drivers. So if you have strong drivers in your team, you're going to do well. Although tell that to Aston Martin, where Max Verstappen just cannot seem to get a run of form no matter how hard he tries. We did pretty well on our first flying lap of Q3 on a used set of soft compound tyres, but we're still going to need quite a bit of improvement here in our final flying lap on a fresh set of soft compound tyres if we want to grab that pole position. Currently all the way down in P8, but we are improving by 6/10 at the moment. Can we get a bit more improvement coming through the final hairpin here? We actually go over the inside curb a bit too much, get a bit of floor damage there, but I think we're still going to be improving by a fair amount here, over 5/10 of a second. It's a 1:18.3, and is it good enough for pole position? Yes, yes it is, and that is back-to-back pole positions. We got pole in Japan, we get pole in Qatar, and I'm very pleased.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Robinson, Norris and Alex Albon. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Well, it's going to be a very tight field here. Norris and Albon only 0.03 of a second behind me there. I wouldn't be surprised if they put a lot of pressure on me down into turn 1 at the start of the sprint tomorrow. But the goal has to be to at least keep them behind in the sprint, and we will see what we can do as we get ready to go into the sprint for the Qatar Grand Prix.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Robinson lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Albon, Oscar Piastri, Russell, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Magnussen, Gasly, Ocon, Fittipaldi, Liam Lawson, Doohan, Hauger, Tsunoda, Joe, Perez, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Stroll, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out. Joining me for today's race once again is Anthony Davidson. Joined once again by former Formula One driver Anthony Davidson. And they've had a lot of on-track incidents recently that could leave them low on confidence.
Certainly confidence is an important factor. And every time you're involved in an incident, it's not just the car you damage, but that confidence as well. but all the top racing drivers were able to tune that out when the race gets underway and focus on the job at hand.
So here we go. We are going to be racing in the sprint here. We're going to be going on a set of medium compound tyres, and hopefully those will carry us to the end. 10 laps on the mediums. It's not a completely atrocious ask, especially when you consider that the Grand Prix is 29 laps. This should be hopefully possible. There are a few people starting on soft, so I don't understand how they're going to make that work, but we will see whether they're capable of making the soft compound tyres go to the end of this sprint or not. But I know I said before that the target was to stay 40 points ahead of Norris in the championship. I think now my target, at least for the sprint, we'll see how the race goes, but at least for the sprint, my target is simple. It is one target only, and that is to beat Lando Norris, and we will see what we can do as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and we've had a better getaway than Norris, who went absolutely nowhere off the start there. He's already been swallowed up by Albon and his former teammate Piastri too, and we are going to lead through the first corner here in the sprint in Qatar. Meanwhile, Lando Norris already falling out of the podium places, and he might be coming under pressure from George Russell here as well. So it could be as low as P5 potentially. Meanwhile, Alex Albon getting nice and close to us, going up the inside, and we make a bit of contact with him there. I thought he would back out of that, but he didn't. I covered him off, and we made quite a hefty bit of contact there. And what you will find very quickly as I make my way through this first lap here is that Alex Albon has definitely picked up some kind of damage from that, because he is going incredibly slowly compared to me now through these corners. You know, on a track where having your wings is basically essential, one of the most aero-dominant tracks on the entire Formula One calendar, if not the most aero-dominant track, he is running with a broken front wing, which is about the worst situation he could find himself in. And so Alex Albon, for now at least, is going to be neutralised and probably out of contention in this sprint. You know, I was thinking to myself before the race started, I'm going to be coming under pressure from two Mercedes. There's a very good chance they could reclaim the lead of Constructors' Championship. But now, as I round the final corner, my lead, as Alex Albon, of course, is peeling into the pit lane, is 5 seconds to the nearest car. So I just have to lap no less than half a tenth slower per lap than Oscar Piastri, and I will win this race. That is a situation that has massively taken the pressure off me, and things might be able to be even easier for us here, as we're looking at Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He's holding up the field a fair amount as well as he peels off to the side of the racetrack. That is going to be race over for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He will be starting from the back in tomorrow's sprint race, or not sprint race, Grand Prix I should say. Make our way onto lap 3 now, and you can see the virtual safety car has been deployed. That was because Yuki Tsunoda also got involved in some kind of crash that caused him to damage his front wing. Coupled that with the fact that there's a retired car on the side of the track, and they decided it was time to bring out the VSC. And so the race is going to be neutralised for a little bit. And yeah, we're just going to chill, maintain the gap to Piastri, try and get as best a restart as we can to make the gap as big as we possibly can prior to the actual restart. And you can see it's actually gone on for quite a while here, because I've managed to make my way all the way to the start-finish line once again, and eventually the VSC does end, and you can see that we've had a pretty good restart there. We're only a few tenths behind the Delta, and we're over 5 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri. So with only 7 laps here to go in the sprint, I'm very optimistic about our chances of getting a result here, as George Russell actually putting a bit of pressure on him there as well. So yeah, really, really solid. Meanwhile, I mentioned one Alfa Romeo got damage earlier. That was the Alfa Romeo of Yuki Tsunoda, and now Zhou Guanyu in the other Alfa Romeo will be pulling off to the side of the road, and he will be out of the sprint here in Qatar. He'll be starting on the back row of the grid for the Grand Prix tomorrow as well. A disappointing situation for those guys, but a very, very happy situation for myself, because despite the fact that Oscar Piastri has moved into my DRS range now, I'm pretty optimistic I'll be able to keep him behind, unless he really has a great run through these final corners and gets close with the DRS as well. But we've saved up quite a lot of battery. We have more than enough to deploy it all the way to the line from the exit of this corner. We actually got front wing damage somewhere. I'm not sure when that happened. Oh, not front wing damage, floor damage I should say. I'm not sure when that happened, but it didn't affect us too much, and we are going to cross the line to win the sprint here in Qatar, and that is 8 points picked up for us. Lando Norris was outside the top 3 in the end, so on a weekend where I thought this was going to be damage limitation, so far all we've done is we've managed to extend our championship lead further, and we'll see if we can go one better once we get into the Grand Prix.
So let's have a quick look at how the drivers' standings have changed. Robinson increases their championship lead. With the sprint wrapped up, we now have our grid line up for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race. Welcome to Losail International Circuit, still making its history in the early stages of its period on the Formula One calendar. It's time for the Qatar Grand Prix. Losail International was built for 2 wheels, but today we race on 4. It's a fast, flowing track, 3.3 miles, 16 turns, just the one DRS zone, but it is a long straight, and you can expect overtaking. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Robinson lines up on pole position, and Oscar Piastri completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Norris, Verstappen, Fittipaldi, Sainz, Doohan, Perez, Hauger, Gasly, Liam Lawson, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Stroll, De Vries, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Leclerc, and Zhou Guanyu. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. We welcome once again to the commentary box Anthony Davidson. And how do you mentally prepare yourself for the rush of the opening lap?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Well, we've already had 1 win here this weekend. Can we make it 2? The personalised strategy saying I should go medium hard. Absolutely. There's no way in hell I am going to be able to make a soft medium work around here ever on this year's game at least. Maybe they'll address the tyre wear for next year's game. That's a good joke because when have they ever addressed anything for next year's game? But yeah, we can hope. We can but hope. They apparently are doing an overhauled driver career mode. Trailer coming in April, so they say, for that. So expect to see a reaction on this channel once I see that. I will be posting a video with my initial thoughts and that kind of thing. I'm very looking forward to the new season. Maybe we can make this one the time we finally do a 10-year career mode. But, you know, refocusing now on the Qatar Grand Prix. It's all about getting a good start here. Lots of people starting on the softs. We'll see if we can keep them behind, but it's not going to be easy as the lights come on. And the lights go out. It was a long hold there, but we've gotten away well. Oscar Piastri slow off the line. George Russell, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen all jumping him, and Carlos Sainz as well. It's like Oscar Piastri stalled, such is the nature of how far down he was compared to the rest of us by that first corner. Verstappen making his way up, Perez making his way up, all of these people. Perez, I don't even know how he's got here, quite frankly, because he qualified 18th. Yet somehow, on lap 1 of the Grand Prix, he finds himself all the way up in P5. So, yeah, a really solid start for Perez in the sprint and in this race now. And, well, I think it's going to be a little bit harder to keep these guys behind because we're not going to have that 5-second cushion to the cars behind that we had before. And we're going to have to try and push as hard as we can to keep as many of these guys behind on these medium tyres when they're all on soft compound tyres. They've, you know, they've gone for a bit of a gamble here. We'll see if it pays off. George Russell going for a move up the inside, and I'm powerless to stop him there. I guess maybe I could have turned in a bit earlier, but I'm not optimistic that would have made too much of a difference, quite frankly. George Russell takes the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix for the time being, and Lando Norris is going to try and go for a move on me around the outside as we get into the final hairpin. But no thank you, sir. If there's anyone that's not going through today, it's you. And we are going to do our best to try and hold Lando Norris behind for as long as we can. Really try and minimise the amount of points that he is capable of scoring here in Qatar because, you know, holding on to this championship lead is absolutely vital. Only 5 races to go in the season after this one, so every point matters. And I said that thing a few races ago about how I'd like to wrap this championship up before the final race of the season. I still maintain that is something that I would quite like to do, but it is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. We're going to have to push very hard in the final few races of the season. However, speaking of pushing hard, we've actually managed to stay in George Russell's DRS range through these first few laps, which is not something I was expecting that I would have done at all. So maybe there's an opportunity here for us to retake the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix. By the time we get to the DRS zone, though, we are 8/10 down on George Russell, which I just can't imagine that we're going to make up that kind of gap on this main straight. Can't burn too much battery, of course, because this is a track that eats your battery for breakfast. And as we make our way towards the end of lap 4, you can see Max Verstappen trying to go around the outside of me here. Is he going to be able to pull off the move? We've got to leave him room on the outside. And I think with the DRS, we're going to be a bit of a sitting duck here. Not only to Max Verstappen, but also to Lando Norris, who's going to make the double overtake up into P2. He has a championship to fight for here, and he is not going to let it go easily. Lando Norris makes his way up 2 positions, and I am going to be falling off the podium now, and it gets even worse because there goes Jack Doohan up my inside, and he's going to make his way up into P4. So hopefully he can set off after a good result here in Qatar. But somebody who will not be getting a good result here in Qatar is the man from the same continent as Jack Doohan, but this time it is a New Zealander, of course, of Liam Lawson, the Kiwi driver, pulling off to the side of the road. He'll become the first retirement from the Grand Prix proper. We had a couple of retirements in the sprint. We're going to have at least one here in the main race as well. And actually, he made a bit of contact with one of the Alfa Romeos as well, who's had to box as a result of that. So a few people already kind of neutralised in this race, and Sergio Perez is going to try and go for a move up the inside here, and somehow he's actually managed to make it work. I don't really know how he's managed to stick that one out. Tried going up the inside back there, but the tyres just don't seem to quite possess the grip or the pace to be able to contend with these guys, as we now come under pressure from Carlos Sainz up the inside. And I'm going to try a bit harder to hold on to this one if we can. He's on the same tyres as me, so realistically there's no excuse here, and we dive down the inside and eventually hold on to the position here. But I imagine it's only a matter of time before Carlos Sainz gets ahead of us. That said, though, Oscar Piastri is the driver in front of him now, as Oscar Piastri goes for a move on me down into turn 1 as well. So there's another position lost, and we're down to P7. And, well, I say this a lot, but it's one of those races, it seems, where we just go backwards and backwards and backwards. We don't have the grip or the pace to race with the guys around us right now, and for that reason we are just going to suffer and suffer and suffer as Carlos Sainz goes for another move up the inside, but he still won't make it work. If you think you're coming through, Carlos, think again, as Jack Doohan peels off to the side of the road there. He is going to be out of the Qatar Grand Prix, and that is our hopes and dreams of holding on to the championship lead well and truly in the bin, I would imagine. Unless Lando Norris retires from this race as well, I don't see any world in which we're holding on to this one. Meanwhile, this is Carlos Sainz trying to go for a move around the outside. Once again, is he going to be able to make the overtake? I reckon he probably will with that DRS. We're going to try and tuck in the slipstream, see if we can stay with him. But at the end of the day, the DRS is just too powerful, and Pierre Gasly overtakes us as well as we fall down into P8 on track now. A little bit of a gap behind to Fittipaldi and Sargent, but clearly it wasn't big enough, because here comes my former teammate, Enzo Fittipaldi. Of all the former teammates I expected to be fighting here, this was not the one who I saw would be overtaking me as early as lap 12, but Enzo Fittipaldi is making his way up into P8, and if we're not careful, soon we're going to fall out of the points. Fortunately, over the next couple of laps, the soft compound tyres for most people started to die off, and so we were able to sort of maintain the gap to Logan Sargent, but Charles Leclerc's already pitted. Logan Sargent coming into the pits. Lando Norris already pitted as well, of course. We are going to be in for a bit of a rough ride here. I don't know where we're going to come out once everyone's pitted, but we will see what the damage is, where everyone is around us, and whether we still have a chance of fighting for good points here today. We obviously got 5th in last year's Qatar Grand Prix, although if I'm not mistaken, there may have been a few safety cars and red flags and things like that. The only time I can ever compete here in Qatar is when there is some semblance of a safety car or a red flag or something like that. I can't do it. Can't do it without that. So, make our way out of the pits onto lap 14 on these fresh hard compound tyres, and now it's just going to be push mania to the end of the race. We make our way around the final corner on lap 14. You can see we've caught up with Yuki Tsunoda, yet to box on those soft compound tyres, and we are able to breeze past him with relative ease. So we make our way up into P9 ahead of the Japanese driver. Still a few cars in front, I think, who are yet to pit, and we should be able to make up at least maybe 1 or 2 more positions, you would imagine, as Enzo Fittipaldi makes his way into the pit lane. He's going to be boxing for those hard compound tyres as well. And as we make our way onto lap 17, we're back into the P8 that we occupied beforehand. However, I was really starting to struggle at this point, and that will become very apparent when you can see that at the end of lap 17, Logan Sargeant and Charles Leclerc had caught me by 2 seconds on that lap. That should never really happen, but it did. And that's because the pace that I was showcasing at this stage of the race was absolutely atrocious. I felt like I had no grip as I fight around the outside of Logan Sargeant here. You know, I felt like I had to give that absolutely everything, and he's just going to fight me back around the outside once again. And well, we're just in suffering central right now, quite frankly, as Logan Sargeant is going to go for another move up the inside here. Surely he's going to have to make it stick one time or another, but we do make our way back ahead of him for now, and Logan Sargeant still cannot make the overtake up into P8. You know, if Sargeant finishes in the points today, I think this will be his first points of the season, if I'm not mistaken. His teammate Hulkenberg has already grabbed some points this season. He got a podium in Monaco, which was an absolutely remarkable result for the driver who is now announced to be retiring at the end of the season. But will his teammate be able to pick up some points before the season is done as well? Logan Sargeant obviously struggling to score points in the real-life Formula 1 World Championship as well, but this time he might just be able to hold on as he makes the overtake and goes up into P8. It really is just a race of how long you can hold on to your tyres. As you can see, Carlos Sainz is 9 seconds up the road from me now. Such is the nature of how poor my pace is around here, and you can see the tyres really starting to go off. 22% on those front tyres, and we've only been on them for about 5 laps, so that is actually pretty poor. Leclerc has to pit again due to some kind of damage or something like that, not really sure, but in any case we are just going to have to soldier on and try and not let it affect us too much as we make our way onto lap 19 now. As we make our way to the end of the lap, you can see that Fittipaldi has caught us by about 4 seconds on that lap. That's the nature of how bad my pace is at the moment, is that Ocon and Albon are going to be caught up with me within like a lap or two. No doubt that they will be right on my tail within a few laps, because Fittipaldi just pulling away and pulling away. As we make our way to the end of lap 20, you can see that the gap to Fittipaldi now is 4 seconds. So he gapped me by about 4 seconds over the course of 1 lap. And they said there were no issues with the car, because I was really worried that there was some kind of issue with the car that was causing us to go so slowly. But realistically, what I actually think it is I think it's tyre temperature. The hard compound tyres are very susceptible to overheating around this track. And as we make our way onto lap 22, we're going to come under pressure from Alex Albon. Of course, if you're wondering how it is that I'm being affected by the tyres overheating and nobody else is, that's because the AI doesn't experience tyre temperature in the same way that human players do. So whilst we've managed to fight off Alex Albon on this occasion, I would wage to say it's only going to be a matter of time before Alex Albon makes this move up into P10 and knocks us out of the final points paying position and pretty much solidifies Mercedes retaking the lead of the Constructors' Championship. Ocon decides to make it a 2-for-1 there as he gets ahead of myself, follows Albon through. Now Dennis Hauger, my former teammate, is going to try and put some pressure on me on lap 25. Will he be able to make this move stick? I'm not quite sure. He doesn't seem like he quite possesses the requisite pace to be able to do it. But we've got a big train of cars forming up behind us, including Joe, including Hauger. We've got Magnussen in the mix. We've got Tsunoda in the mix. Leclerc, who's done a 2-stop, by the way, is now getting involved in the fight as well. At the rate we're going, we're only going to be able to beat maybe 2 drivers here, I reckon. And that is going to be De Vries and Stroll, the AlphaTauris, because those are the only 2 that have such poor pace that even when I'm losing 4 seconds a lap due to enhanced tyre wear, I got there eventually. Even then, they can't seem to catch me. So yeah, we are really struggling here. Joe went for a bit of a move there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for another one up the inside here, and I think he's pulled this one off. But actually, we sling it back around the outside. We don't have any DRS though, so I imagine it's just going to be the Joe show as he makes his way through. Kevin Magnussen, my former teammate, he's going to try and overtake my other former teammate Dennis Hauger as well as he makes his way through. Hauger not able to capitalise as Tsunoda goes for a move up the inside there as well. Hauger, in trying to overtake me, has managed to lose himself 3 positions here, and I'm sure he will be absolutely fuming at that. But someone who is going to try and go for this move up into P15 is Yuki Tsunoda, and with his superior tyre grip, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually manages to make the move stick. We're going to try and hold it around the outside, but the tyres are going to go off by the end of the lap. That's how this goes here, is that by the time we reach the end of the lap, the tyres are just absolutely overcooked to the point that I can't do anything, and so I have to cool them down on the main straight and then rinse repeat every single lap. We're on lap 26 now, but I'd be waged to say that this will be a recurring theme for the rest of the race. I don't think we're going to have any pace for these last few laps. We're just going to have to try and hold on to whatever position we can. Meanwhile, out in front, it is Max Verstappen leading the race as Tsunoda gets past me there. It's George Russell in P2, and it is Lando Norris in P3. So at the moment, Lando Norris will be outscoring me by 15 points. But he does have Sergio Perez for company behind him, who is having an absolutely remarkable race, all things considered. He started in P18 and he's looking on the verge of grabbing a podium here. Tsunoda's overtaken me. Hauger might be the next one to follow suit, and Leclerc might try and follow him through as well by the looks of things, as Hauger does eventually make the overtake. Here comes Charles Leclerc. I was burning the battery, but then I stopped burning the battery, and that was enough for Charles Leclerc to get through. I'm under no illusions of the pace that we're showing here, and I just have to try and mitigate the damage that happens as a result of it. But as the tyres are really starting to go off here, the tyres, they're overheating. That causes them to go off a little bit faster. 62% on the front left. Nico Hulkenberg is right on our tail. The man who will be retiring in just a few races' time. He's still managing to make overtakes as I set a lap time that is 5 seconds slower than my best lap time in this race so far. The combination of tyre wear and tyre temperature absolutely kicking my ass here, and I think we're just going to be lucky if we don't lose any more positions. Magnussen had to box again. That's put him down in P19. Meanwhile, we're going to be getting blue flags here to Nick De Vries, who must just be having an absolutely terrible race. I think he's been spinning all over the place, to be honest with you. So, I think P17 is probably going to be the absolute maximum that we can achieve here, unfortunately. And as we make our way round the final few corners, you can see that Max Verstappen has won the race in the Aston Martin. Good result for him. He's not having the best of seasons, but that will go a long way into improving his confidence and maybe allowing him to make a bit of a fight towards the top end. Even if he can't win the championship anymore, I'm sure that he will still be trying very, very hard to maximise his result in the championship. And we are going to round the final corner. We're onto the DRS straight now. It was just an absolutely horrid race from start to finish here in terms of tyre performance, but we are going to cross the line to take P17. We struggle home, and hopefully this will be the worst race result we have all season, and we can start getting on the road to recovery a bit more once we get into a few tracks that I quite like Brazil and Portugal, for example. I think could go really well for us.
And an incredible win for Aston Martin. A brilliant performance.
Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's Grand Prix. And there are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Aston Martin on the top step.
Well, Sergio Perez in the end did manage to make it a double Red Bull podium as he joins George Russell and Max Verstappen, his former teammate, on the podium here. Lando Norris failing to get a podium here on a weekend he absolutely would have needed one. And, it's good news for us. It will be good news for George Russell, who maybe might just have one eye on the Drivers' Championship thinking, perhaps I could get back into the fight here. But for us, an absolutely horrible weekend, and we'll have to bounce back next time in Mexico.
So let's review the drivers' standings. It was not the best weekend for our championship leader, and their advantage at the top has been reduced. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Max Verstappen seemed to just effortlessly weave through the other drivers today without a care in the world. He was definitely my driver of choice.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes moved to the top of the table. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from Red Bull this time out, and they improved their position in the championship. Been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, failing to score in that Qatar Grand Prix meant that we are now 10 points down on Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship, and we're actually down on Red Bull by a few points as well. So, we're going to need a much stronger showing in Mexico City. I'm going to need Jack Doohan back from that mechanical failure, firing on all cylinders to try and get us into the points if he possibly can. Not too many more races left to go in this season, just 5 races now. It's going to be Mexico, and then I believe it is going to be Brazil, then Portugal, then Las Vegas, then Abu Dhabi to the end of the season. So, Brazil coming quite early, to be fair. I can't imagine there being 3 races after Brazil in a normal Formula 1 calendar, but that is what is going to be happening in this year's calendar. So, yeah, we're going to have to just deal with that and cross that bridge. But yeah, we definitely have a few strong races coming up, particularly Brazil and Portugal. You know, I won in Brazil last year from quite far down on the grid. I made my way through and ended up winning it in quite dominant fashion, to be perfectly honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if we can get another strong result there. We probably will have to take a grid penalty at some point between now and the end of the season, but I'm not sure where that will be. Probably only need to be the one, just for an extra gearbox. I think that's the only thing I'm really concerned about, is that we may have to take one more gearbox, but that'll be about the extent of it. Portugal, probably a track I should have won at last season if it wasn't for having 2 pit stop errors in the same race. Just absolutely screwed our chances, basically, of scoring points there. Vegas usually throws up a bit of chaos that allows me to thrive and grab a strong haul of points. And then in Mexico and Abu Dhabi, all I need to do probably is just not get absolutely clowned on, and this championship should be more than ours. Lando Norris, 47 points down on us. He only managed to close the gap by 9 points over the whole weekend. I guess in large part due to the fact that I did outscore him in the sprint race, of course. But, you know, you've got to be there to do it on the day, and that's exactly what we did here in Qatar, at least in the sprint. In the race, it didn't quite pan out for us. We had our worst result of the season and the team's worst result of the season, 17th in a DNF. Can you imagine when you're a team who's won 6 races this season and your social media department's got to put on Twitter 17th and DNF? When I don't know if Doohan's had any DNFs this season so far. He might have had one beforehand. I've had none. This was comfortably the darkest weekend for Jaguar this season, but I don't even know if it's going to make that much of a difference to the overall landscape of the Drivers' Championship, certainly. This could be critical for the Constructors' Championship, which is something that I actually am quite keen to win this season. But with every passing race, it just seems like there might be something getting in the way of us achieving that. So, yeah, all we can do now is look ahead to those last 5 races of the season. There will be no Streamers & Co. VRL video coming out this weekend because I am away when the race is on, so I won't be able to take part in it, unfortunately, which is frustrating for many reasons. So you can expect to basically just see nothing but my team career mode until the end of the season. It should be coming out every single day, as far as I understand. You know, I'm working very hard and making 2 videos a day at the moment to mitigate the period of time that I'm away for. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this season wraps up as we move into the final 5 races. But that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.